Okay, boys and girls, please go ahead and open up your writer's notebook to the next available page and put today's date. Today is January 30th. Yes. Okay, well, today is January 30th. Everybody makes a mistake. Okay, so let's just review really quickly what we've been doing and the steps that we've been making in our process. Now, we've taken a look at this text set on Hamburgers and Tacos. We've read the directions and determined that they want us to write an informational essay on the histories of Hamburgers and Tacos, and they want us to write this essay using a text structure that is compare and contrast. We've spent a day relearning how we are supposed to be annotating the text using our nonfiction reading strategies to break up the text into sections and to write in the white space. Try to make this a habit that you do all the time, even when you're taking a reading comprehension test. Then we started to plan. We determined our thesis statement, trying to pull some of the keywords from the directions. Then we looked at how we had annotated the text and we found similarities. We wrote complete sentences for our main ideas. We determined the order in which we wanted to talk about our main ideas. We added transitional phrases and lowercased the first letter in that sentence, because with a transitional phrase now, we're not beginning a new sentence, it's part of that sentence. Now, yesterday I showed you a way of planning that would help you with your time management. This planning has you noting the paragraph number. You could also note the source. You could say source 1 and then the paragraph if the paragraph numbers start over again in the next piece of the text. So if each source gets renumbered, then you could just put S1 and the paragraph. Then we went back inside and we looked at the paragraph and we underlined important keywords or noted down things that we wanted to quote when we write our body paragraph. Okay, and during work time yesterday, you were supposed to go ahead and finish up your plan so that you had a similar plan. Now remember, the other thing we talked about too was that for this main idea, which we modeled in the mini lesson, there was only one paragraph that talked about it. But if you had more than one paragraph in which information could be found to use in your body paragraph, then you would just have an additional bullet. Okay, and hopefully this is going to help you with your time management, save some time. A lot of you were copying big, long pieces of text on your planning sheet, and then you were copying those big, long pieces of text into your essay, and you were wasting a lot of time, and you were having a difficult time trying to finish your essay. We finished off our lesson by talking about that linking sentence and how important it is to remember to always end our body paragraphs with that linking sentence. Not linking it to the next paragraph, but linking it back to our thesis statement. Remember, that's how we build that cohesion. All right, so today we're ready to start writing. What is the very first thing that you do when you're writing an essay? What is the very first part that you write? Sawyer, what is the very first part that you write? Okay, all right, you're there, but what's the first part? There are 5 parts. What's that? The introduction. And as Sawyer said, the first part of that introduction is the hook. And I think that writing the hook sometimes stumps you, which is why I asked you to bring your chart, your hook chart, with you to the floor. So let's just really quickly take a look at that chart. Now, there are multiple ways in which you can hook your reader. Remember what the purpose is. The purpose is to get your reader interested in what you're going to talk about. Sometimes you might want to be trying to make them understand why this topic is important or how it can impact them. Now, obviously, we're talking about hamburgers and tacos here. Okay, and we're really talking about the histories of it. So we want to just kind of bring the reader in. Now, there are only 5 hooks on here, and that's just a place for you to get started. Obviously, as you become a more advanced writer, you're going to come up with other ways in which you can hook your reader. Okay, and you'll look at, you can look at this chart and see that there are examples on this chart that you could use to model your own hook after. Okay, you could ask a rhetorical question or create a scenario. Picture this. It's lunchtime and you're starving, but you can't decide what you want to eat. Do you want a hamburger or do you want a taco? Amazingly, these 2 foods have very similar history. Okay, there's a sample hook right there. A scenario hook. Okay, so you can think about that. Sometimes something in the text set strikes you and inspires you to write a hook. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind. All right, so what I want you to do right now in your writer's notebook where you put your date, I want you to write at the very top, introduction. And the first part is going to be our hook. Who can remember how many sentences our hook should be? Olivia? 2 to 3. Now, guys, it's okay. Let me just go ahead and write sentences here. If your hook goes to 4 sentences, the essay police are not going to come and arrest you. Okay? But you just want to be cautious that your hook is not so long that it distracts from what you're really going to be writing about. Okay, so what I want you to do, I want you to go ahead, turn and talk with a partner, and write in the air a hook that you could use for your essay. Go ahead and turn and talk. Anthony, do you have a partner? Anthony, do you have a partner? I think we are wasting a lot of time right now. Get to work. Julina, Carol does not have a partner. Could you come back here, please? Thank you. Lots of questions. That you do not answer. That's correct. Which one are you trying to work on? Okay. Scenario. All right. Okay, guys, if you decide on a hook that you really like, go ahead and jot it down into your notebook. Okay, it sounds like we've got lots of people who have decided and are jotting down. I'm going to give you a couple seconds to finish jotting. And then we'll share some of the hooks that you wrote. Anybody want to share? All right, go ahead, Alexander. Nice and loud.
Picture this. It's lunchtime and you have to choose between a hamburger or taco. You can't decide what to choose, but the line gets impatient. What do you choose?
Okay. You can't decide, and the people behind you in line are getting impatient. What would you choose? Who else would like to share? Sophia, nice and loud.
Picture this. It's Tuesday night and half of your family wants tacos and the other half wants hamburgers. As crazy as it sounds, these two foods have similar histories.
Very nice, very nice. One more. Okay, go ahead, Mariah.
Would you choose hamburgers or tacos to eat for dinner? Well, surprisingly, both have a very similar history.
There you go. Okay. So I think when you're ending your hook with that surprisingly, or these two foods have a very similar histories. You might not know it, but these two foods have a very similar history. It kind of flows into the next step in your introduction. What is the next step in your introduction? After you've written your hook, what do you need to include? Sawyer? Okay, so you're going to preview your main idea sentences. And remember, no, and put this in capital letters, transitions here. So remember how we took our planning sheet? I'm just going to slide this out for a second, guys. I'll put it back in a minute. Remember how we took our planning sheet and we revised it once we determined which order? We revised it and we put these transitional phrases. In your introduction, don't use them. So go back to the original. So if we kind of write this in the air and we talk about how you're at lunch, like Alexander said, you're at lunch, you're looking at the menu, you can't decide. The people behind you are getting impatient because you can't decide between the hamburger and the hot dog. Amazing, I'm sorry, I do that all the time. Hamburgers and tacos. the people behind you are getting impatient, and then you say something like, surprisingly, both of these different foods have similar histories. When you go in and you start doing this, both hamburgers and tacos were brought to the United States by immigrants. Both hamburgers and tacos were avoided by Americans at first. Both hamburgers and tacos eventually became popular. Okay, can you see how that flows really nicely? Okay, so when you're finished with your hook, then you're going to preview your main idea sentences without the transitional phrases. Okay, and so then what is the final piece to our introduction? What do we end with? What do we end with, Julia? After we've given the hook, after we've previewed our main idea sentences, so we should have 3, what comes after that? Karina, can you help her out? Thesis statement. And the reason we put it at the end there, we don't want to bury it in the middle of the paragraph, because most of the time our reader is going to remember the last thing you said. Okay, so if we say, picture this, it's lunchtime and you're starving, you're standing in line at your favorite fast food restaurant, you can't decide between the juicy hamburger and the spicy taco, and you say something like, surprisingly, these 2 very different foods have similar histories. Then you go through and you use your planning sheet and you say, both hamburgers and tacos were brought to the United States by immigrants. Both hamburgers and tacos were avoided by Americans at first. Both hamburgers and tacos eventually became popular. And then you end that introductory paragraph with your thesis statement, which is already written in a cloud in a sentence. Can you see why we did all that work ahead of time? Very easy. Now we just say, although hamburgers and tacos are different foods, they have similar histories. So the extra work that we do in the plan really helps us when we get ready to write our essay. Today, during our independent time, you are going to go back to your seat and you are going to write your introduction. Please write only your introduction. If you finish before our time is up, I'd like you to take out the other text set that you have that we've been practicing with, the one about the spices and the food flavoring, okay? And please apply the same strategies that we've been using on our hamburgers and tacos to that text set, okay? We'll give you a chance to practice twice. Practice your introduction twice. Any questions before you go back to your seats? Okay, go ahead and head back.